just share my screen. Here we go. All right. So welcome, guys. Here we are for another episode of Athletistry PT Presents. Tonight is the Great 8. So we're going to dive into the secrets that the fitness magazines won't tell you about how to actually achieve the body you desire. So something that I've realized since becoming a personal trainer, and probably something that I knew even when I was still a ballet dancer, was that the fitness industry likes to hold things back a little bit. So you go out and you buy Men's Health or Women's Health magazine, and everything that you're going to see is going to be get six-pack abs, get massive biceps, change your body in the next 6 weeks and look amazing like the fitness model that's on the screen in front of you or on the magazine in front of you. And unfortunately, that's just not true. And that's what we're going to dive into today a little bit. We're also going to talk about how there are certain movement patterns that everyone should be using in their exercise programming and in all of their workouts that the body actually craves. The body actually needs these movement patterns in order to get the results they want. And physically, they're very important for functional movement, for strength, for mobility, for stability as well. And so, what we see in the fitness industry is that when I work with clients, especially, is that a lot of people will come to me and we do assessments before we start any type of programming, and usually going through the assessments and just going through the basic grade 8 movements, most people struggle with all of them. So we're going to dive into all of that today. We're going to have a bit of fun. If you stick around until the end, I've got some awesome announcements. I've got a massive announcement to make, as well as some free stuff, but you got to stick around until the end. So be sure that you do that. If you guys are tuning in live on Facebook, let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're enjoying this. Hashtag live. Let me know that you guys are around. And feel free to ask me any questions throughout the process as well. Your involvement makes this a lot more fun and makes it a lot more informative as well. I'm sure that everyone's going to have questions as I dive in. And the more that you guys get involved with that, the better it will be. All right. So without further ado, let's do it. Grade 8, guys. Here we go. Here we go. So let's start with a picture of me, right? Over the last 66 days, I have been doing a challenge. I'm sure if you guys have been following along, you've seen that I've been doing the 75 hard challenge. And over the course of that 75 hard challenge, I haven't been doing any type of crazy workouts. I've been doing 2 workouts a day. So I've had quite a high volume of exercise. But the workouts haven't been anything ridiculous. They've actually just been using the same movement patterns that I'm going to talk about in this webinar. And you can see that by doing that basic workout pattern, by doing the same exercises consistently every day, following a plan, following a workout process consistently, and doing the same exercises and improving those exercises and overloading those exercises so that my body continues to change and develop, that in just 66 days, I actually did see a result. Now, I'm not saying that everyone's going to have that kind of result that I have had, but it is definitely something that can be achieved in a short period of time. But I can guarantee you that doing the kind of workouts that most fitness magazines are going to sell you are probably not going to get you this kind of result. All right, there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about throughout the next 45 minutes or so that will help you to get there, that I can guarantee you haven't read about. All right, let's get into this, guys. So what will I cover over the next 45 minutes? So before we get into anything, we're going to get into what the grade 8 exercises are. I'll talk about the problems that you find with fitness magazines. We'll dive into the secret that no one tells you about, and even I didn't realize until around August last year, that even getting started in the fitness industry after finishing my certification as a personal trainer, it wasn't until I discovered this through taking a course, that there's a lot more to getting the right results for your body and living your best self than just doing a generalized workout program. A little bit of a hint there, guys. Generalized. Maybe we shouldn't be generalizing everything. And then we get some free stuff. Plus, there's a massive announcement that you guys got to stick around to until the end in order to get access to, or at least in order to find out about. And hopefully you guys are all on live and you're enjoying this. If you are, let me know. Hashtag live, hashtag live, hashtag that you're here. Let me know that you're here, guys. I need to know, because that makes me have a lot more fun. You know, if I know that there's people watching and enjoying this, then we can get a lot more out of it. All right, so let's do it. Grade 8. What are the grade 8? So there are 8 movement patterns, or kind of basic movement patterns that we look at as trainers, as exercise scientists, as physiologists, that are designed based on biomechanics to get the best results out of our body, to improve our strength, to improve our mobility, to improve our stability, and keep us healthy for as long as possible. We're all living longer and longer lives. And as some of you may know, the older you get, the less strength your body has, the more your bone density goes down. And so maintaining that and keeping your body healthy for as long as possible is super important. We want to stay healthy for as long as possible. We want to stay able to be self-sufficient for as long as possible, because as unfortunately one of the greatest causes of death in the elderly is that they're not able to stay self-sufficient. They actually lose mobility. They become depressed. Things get very difficult, and a lot of that can be fixed with proper exercise, or at least prolonged. Health can be prolonged with proper exercise from a young age. So, what are the grade 8 exercises? The grade 8 are squats, or some sort of knee dominant leg exercise, deadlifts, or some sort of hip dominant leg exercise. We have lunges, which is also another knee dominant, but it's going to be a slightly different pattern to a squat. We have a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a vertical push, a vertical pull, and core. Okay, so those are the grade 8. That's what we're trying to target every time that we do a program. Now, there are going to be different types of programs where you can split those up into separate days. If you're really trying to specifically target one area, you can split up those things, but we'll talk about how to do all of that in a little bit. How can we implement them? Obviously, the best way to implement them is to utilize, if you're doing a full body program, what we call a full body program, either all of them or most of them on the days that you're training with resistance. So, an example might be doing squats, some push-ups, a seated row, and a plank. Okay, so there you've got four of the grade 8 that you can do on one day, and then on an opposite day, maybe you do some lunges, a deadlift, or a kettlebell swing. We could do some shoulder press, lat pull downs, and maybe some Palloff press or hanging leg raises, or something else to challenge your core, so that you're increasing your strength in your core as well. What does an ideal program look like? An ideal program is probably going to be different for everybody, and we'll really dive into that in about 20 minutes once I get to that point in the presentation. But the thing about ideal program is that each person is different, so each person's ideal is going to be slightly different as well. That's why if you go online right now and you search workout program, you're going to come up with millions and millions of results, because there are so many different workout programs that people can do. That being said, if they're not sticking to the basics, sticking to the simple movement patterns of the grade 8, they're probably overcomplicating things, and you're probably going to end up injured unless you've got some sort of specialization or high-level athlete training where you're trying to specifically do something that's going to be a little bit different than just sticking to the basics. Yeah. So let's look at what these movement patterns are a little bit closer. Squats. All right, so squats are going to be your mainstay. If you're not doing squats, then you should probably go back and look at your program and see what's going wrong. All right. Now, with every exercise that I talk about tonight, there's going to be progressions and there's going to be regressions, meaning that there's going to be simple, easy versions of the exercise, and then there are going to be ways that we can progress the exercise to make it more complex or more difficult for the body. With the squat, those progressions and regressions look something like this. If I had someone who was coming to me as a client and they were struggling to do a squat by, keeping their heels down, keeping their back at a nice parallel position to the shins, which is what we're trying to see. If you look in that picture there, you can see that the girl at the front, her back is in a pretty good line with her shins. So we're trying to keep them in that parallel position when we get to the base of the squat. Struggling to keep their heels down, for example, struggling to keep their back straight, losing their core, that kind of thing. Usually what I would do if they're struggling with all of those things is I would get them to put a Swiss ball. So if you've ever you see that big ball that's sitting there in the back of that picture, I would get them to put a Swiss ball against the wall. I'd have their back up against the Swiss ball, and then I would get them to do a squat using that as a support for their body. There are a couple other ways that you can support a squat. One is with TRX cables, so the ones that kind of hang down that have the handles. You can use those to support the body. You can also do squats to a box. So if you've seen those big boxes that oftentimes people are jumping onto, especially when you watch CrossFit or something like that, you can actually sit down to the box and then stand back up again. So it's essentially the same type of thing, but you're stopping yourself from falling down in the case that your muscles aren't strong enough to do that. Now, how do we progress it? How do we get better at it? That's where what we call progressive overload comes into play. So every time that you train, you should be actually increasing the load that you can hold, right? So let's say you get started and you aren't able to do a squat with any load and you need a ball behind your back. You do that for, an example, 3 sets of 10. And then the next week you come back in and it's very easy to do. And so you start to add a little bit of weight to that. Now, as you get better and stronger, you're going to progress away from using the ball. So you start to move away from using the ball, and you obviously lower the weight again because doing it without the ball is going to be more difficult. Progress the weight up, and then eventually you can move to front weighted squats. So anything where the weight is in front of your body. When you get to a good enough strength with front weighted squats, you would move the weight to your back, and that's when we start to look at doing bar weighted squats. My recommendation is if you're going to start moving into bar weighted squats, speak with a trainer, speak with somebody who can spot you and who can make sure that your form is staying good while under the load of the bar. When should we be putting squats in? I always recommend that legs come first in a program. So if you're looking at creating a program and you're not sure exactly when to put them in first. The legs are the largest part of the body to train. They also fatigue quite quickly. And if you're already tired and you're trying to get in there and use that large muscle group after you've done a massive workout, you're not going to be as efficient. Your form might suffer. All right. So how do we do a squat? Visually, the best way to do it is to stand in front of a mirror so that you can see yourself. You want to either put your hands behind your head or out in front of you or on your hips, wherever is going to be comfortable. And then your feet are going to be about shoulder width apart. Toes slightly pointed outwards at about a 5-degree angle to your ankles. And you're going to push your hips back with your chest nice and tall, chin slightly tucked until your hips are parallel to the floor. Now, when you come back up, you're going to push your heels into the ground. So you've got 3 points of contact. You've got your big toe, your little toe, and your heel. You're going to push your heels into the floor, pushing all the way up until you lock out your glutes. So if you're leaving your hips behind you, you haven't finished the squat. You want to fully lock out so that your back is in a nice straight position. That stays the same for all versions of squat, and you're essentially going to do that regardless of whether you're regressing or progressing it. All right. Now, what do we got next? Here we go. Anyone have any questions about the squat? Let me know, guys. Let me know what's going on. If not, I'm going to dive into lunges. So lunges are a unilateral movement, meaning that they're going to work one side or the other. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of this before or not, but there are 2 types of exercise, essentially. There's isolated exercises and there are compound exercises. All of the exercises that I'm going to talk about tonight are compound exercises because if you think about it, when you're exercising, you want to try and get as much bang for buck as possible in as little amount of time as possible. So if you're working multiple joints at the same time, multiple muscle groups, you're going to get a much better result than if you're just doing one joint or one muscle group. It does tend to tire you out a little bit more, but it also has a much greater bang for buck effect. So let's get into lunges. Lunges are a fantastic exercise to do for working on the walking pattern or the running pattern. They're great for that, for strengthening that ability. And if you do struggle with a proper walking pattern or proper gait, strengthening your lunges is going to be fantastic. I would recommend probably doing lunges before squats, even though I've put them after, just because they are a little bit more complicated from a coordination standpoint. That being said, I do also see a lot of clients struggling with lunges. So this is one where if you are struggling with it, it's very important that you regress it completely. The way to do that is to put yourself into a lunge position already. So one foot in front of the other. Now, as you can see in this picture, the girl has a nice 90-degree angle of the knee at the front and a nice 90-degree angle of the knee at the back. You want to make sure that both feet are firmly planted on the floor. In this one, she's got an elevated knee. It's not necessary to do that, especially if you're starting from the beginning. So what you want to do, you can grab, most gyms will have a dowel or a stick of some sort, and you can put that onto the ground, and you want to hold that in the opposite leg, on the opposite hand to the leg that's in front. Now, once you start the lunge, you're going to have both feet planted on the floor. You're going to bend your knees so that your hips come straight down, keeping your back really nice and straight as you do that lunge. And then you're going to push back up, again, locking out at the hips. It's very important that you lock the glutes out every time because we don't want to put any undue pressure on the low back. Now, as you get stronger, obviously you can progress it just like you would a squat. So you can start to add weight to it. You can weight it offside. You can weight it onside. So what that means is you're putting the weight on the side of the leg that's in front or the weight on the opposite side of the leg that's in front. It depends on how you want to weight it. It does challenge the core a little bit differently in both circumstances. You can also do squats with weight behind you. Lunges with weights behind you. You can do lunges with weights above your head. You can do walking lunges. There are so many different progressions to lunges that I probably couldn't even list all of them. Jumping lunges, all kinds of things. When to do them, I would probably do them first in an exercise program, or even you could probably even do them supersetted with a squat, meaning that you could do lunges first and then squats afterwards if you were trying to really fatigue your legs. All right. Any questions about lunges, guys? Let me know if you're having any questions, or I will jump into the next exercise. Deadlifts. Deadlifts are an excellent exercise, and there's a lot of controversy and discussion between exercise professionals and bodybuilders and trainers and stuff as to whether the deadlift is a back exercise or a leg exercise. Now, I think probably the best way to look at it is that it's a full body exercise in the sense that your entire body is working. But when we do it, the movement pattern that we're looking at is actually a hip hinge movement pattern, so bending at the hips. A lot of people struggle with bending at the hips properly, which is again why we have such an issue with low back injuries. Low back injuries are one of the largest occupational hazards in the world, I believe. And people often struggle with low back problems at some point in their life. I know I definitely have. But that being said, when you're lifting girls, it's a little bit different than lifting a bar off the floor. Progressions and regressions. Look, when starting with a deadlift, it's very important that you learn how to hinge properly at the hips. So the very starting point that you're going to do is you're going to stand with your back to a wall, probably about 6 centimeters away from the wall. And you're just going to bend at the hips until your bum touches the mirror or the wall behind you. All right. You want to keep a slight bend in your knees. You want to keep your back as straight as possible, and you want to keep your arms straight like straps coming down from the shoulders. It is a very complex exercise to learn how to do properly. But if you do need help, definitely working with a trainer one-on-one or someone who can coach you in that exercise is going to be very important. Marie Claire has just asked that it said that it's hard for her to get a workout anywhere except her hands and her shoulders. Probably what's happening in that situation is that the hands and shoulders, because they're struggling to hold up the bar that you're lifting, are actually taking most of the weight, and you're not actually feeling the resistance in your legs, because you're, number one, as a ballet dancer, you're probably flexible enough to be able to handle much more load, but you're also quite strong in the legs. So what's happening is the place where your body is weak is actually struggling more than the places where it's strong. Now, with a deadlift, it's important, if you do eventually progress to doing full deadlifts from the floor, that you use bumper plates every time. If you're using the small weight plates, so the smaller ones that you find in the gym, they actually don't allow the body to have proper form. So if you look in this picture of this guy here doing a deadlift, you can see that his shoulders are activated. So you can see the muscles behind the shoulders are locked in. And the way that you achieve that is once the weight is on the ground, you actually want to feel like you're rotating your arms. You can see that kind of slight rotation if I do this. And so it's rotating the arms, and almost one of the cues that I give is to feel like you're bending the bar. So you want to feel like that tension is coming into the bar, and you're bending the bar with your arms. Obviously, you're not going to be able to bend the bar, but you want to have that feeling. Putting your hips slightly elevated above the knee line, pushing your knees out into your elbows, and then as you lift, you want to push the hips up, stretch the knees, and lock out the hips, and then you want to bend at the hips, allowing the bar to pass the knees, and then bend the knees until the bar touches the floor, the weights touch the floor. All right. Generally, I wouldn't do squats and deadlifts on the same day. I generally try to offset them, just because if you're doing that much leg work on one day, you're going to get quite fatigued, quite sore. And the last thing you want to have happen is that you come to the gym for 2 sessions and then you don't ever come back because you're too tired and too sore to make it back in. So I would definitely generally do deadlifts on a day that is separate to squats and lunges. Also because it works what we call the posterior chain of the body. So they're more of a working the back part of the body as opposed to the anterior, which is the front. Okay. All right, moving to the upper body. Now, when we look at the upper body, there's quite a lot of different moving patterns that we can work with. Obviously, because the arms have a lot more directional movement that we can base things on. So when we look at horizontal push, obviously, I'm not looking at one specific exercise. Now we're moving into multiple different exercises. So bench press at any angle, doing things like flies, push-ups, all of those different movements. Anytime that you're pushing anything away from your body at a horizontal pattern is going to be classified in a horizontal push. Now, if we're starting with any type of chest press exercise, what I always recommend doing to start out with is to lie down on the floor and do what we call a floor press. So getting someone to help you either by lifting the weights to your hands or guiding you with that pattern is going to be very important. It's also very important that when you are lifting, that your elbow is at a 45-degree angle to your shoulder. So we don't want it to be flared out like this, because it actually puts the shoulder in a really bad position. If any of you have ever suffered from shoulder impingements or extreme shoulder pain, that would be why. Also, making sure that when you then lower the weight, if you're lying on the floor, what you want to do is make sure that the elbows hit at the same time. So you're training your body to use both arms equally and not allowing them to move in different directions or at different patterns. Now, progressions of that. Obviously, increasing the weight is going to be good. Moving on to a barbell shoulder press, barbell chest press is going to be the eventual full progression of a horizontal push. And there are going to be different grips that you can do on a barbell. Also different techniques that you can use, going from with a flat back all the way to powerlifting style bench press, where maybe you've seen pictures of videos, but the people actually have like an arch in the low spine in order to shorten the distance of the bar coming to the chest. Any type of horizontal push is generally going to work the chest, the shoulders, and the triceps. And it's an important exercise, but what we also find with horizontal push is that we need to balance it out, because as we all sit at desks these days and computers and look at our phones, we tend to develop a postural abnormality called rounded shoulders and forward head position. So if we're not balancing out the chest dominance and anterior dominance of the body by doing back exercises, what we actually end up happening is that we end up developing muscular imbalances. So it's very important that even though horizontal push is a great exercise and we all want to be able to do lots of push-ups, that we balance it out with, let's do this here, the horizontal pull. And there you get to see me doing a seated row. So as you can see in this image, I'm actually doing the opposite movement pattern. So I'm pulling something towards my body in a horizontal plane. All right, there are lots of different rows that we can do. I do like the seated row quite a bit because number one, it's not going to put the same amount of pressure on your low back as doing a standing bent over row is. Excuse me. Bent over rows can be quite difficult as well if you struggle to get your body into the right position. Most people that I see doing bent over rows are actually up too high. Their body is too upright, which means that it's coming much more into the shoulder and the traps and not actually hitting in the rhomboids, which sit between the shoulder blades. So we really want to make sure that when we're pulling the weight, and this is very important as well, that when we're pulling the weight, it's not just an arm pull, that we actually want to squeeze the shoulder blades together in order to shorten the arms and make them bent. All right, progressions and regressions. Look, this is an easy one to regress, because basically you can sit at a machine, especially in most commercial gyms. You're going to have this type of pulley machine where you can sit down and just pull the weight to you. It makes it very simple. When we start to look at progressing it, is when your core is strong enough and your body can actually you can put your body into the right position in order to stand up into a bent over row. And then we can start to progress it to lifting barbells and doing rows with barbells. I would generally alternate when we're like, if we're putting these into a program, what I would generally do is a push. So a horizontal push and then a horizontal pull. Keep them on the same day, and then do your vertical exercises on the opposite day. Yeah. Vertical push. You can see me from behind there doing an overhead press with a barbell. Now, again, with anything, the barbell is going to be the ultimate progression. That's where we're trying to get with things, is to do things with a barbell because of how much load we can put on the body. That doesn't mean that you have to do it. That's just where we're trying to get to with things. So a standing overhead press with a barbell is a very complex exercise, because there's a lot of control that needs to come through the core. The shoulders need to be well stabilized. You need to be quite strong in order to lift the barbell overhead. So what I would suggest is starting out seated at a bench, usually at a 45-degree angle, in order to keep the shoulder locked into a good position so that the arm isn't rotating forward. And then you want to push the arm straight overhead. So we're not bringing the weight together in the middle. We don't want to pinch off the shoulder blade, or the shoulder socket there. We just want to make sure that the weight is going straight overhead and then coming back down so that the elbow is just at a slight angle below the shoulder. As you get stronger, obviously you can then progress that to working with a dumbbell. And essentially what you're looking to do is one push and one pull exercise in a program, a basic program. And then as you get stronger and more proficient, you can add in different types of pushes and different types of pulls to get the body fatigued faster and increase what we call your metabolic stress. So there are a couple of ways that we can train. I'll dive into this a little bit later as well. One is metabolic stress. One is mechanical tension, and they can be used differently for building muscle, strengthening muscle, and improving endurance. All right. All right. So here we have a young man doing a lat pull down. So that's probably going to be the easiest exercise to do for increasing your lat strength in a vertical pull. The lats sit just underneath alongside the shoulder blades there. Essentially, when you're looking at this exercise, there are lots of different grips you can use. There are lots of different positions you can put your hands in. It's the reason why we do a lat pull down is because most people don't have the upper body strength to actually do a pull up. So this is a way to train your body to get strong enough in order to do a pull up. And then once you're able to do a pull up, you can actually start to add weight to your own body, which will then enhance your ability to strengthen your shoulder blades and your lats. When would you do them? So I would definitely do a vertical pull probably after doing a vertical push. Now there are some people who, when they're creating programs, they'll do a push day, a pull day, and a legs day. There's nothing wrong with that. It just is a little bit more of an advanced program, and it's something that once you've done full body programs for long enough, you can advance to that place. Yeah. The core. All right. So there are lots of different exercises for the core. There are entire industries built around six packs. We all spend so much time wanting to have the infamous six pack. Personally, as much as I think it's aesthetically beautiful, I think what's more important is strength. So if you have a very strong core, and the core doesn't just mean your rectus abdominis, which is the six pack. It also means your transverse abdominis. It means your obliques. The back is also part of the core as well. So all of the muscles that support your spine, and the purpose of the core is really to give power to everything else and stability to everything else. So when we're constantly working our body in what we call abdominal flexion, things like crunches, leg raises, oblique crunch, and anything where we're bending the body, we're essentially training it to do things that it doesn't naturally do. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it causes fatigue for the abdominals, but the body actually isn't very strong in rotation or in flexion. It's much stronger when it's working against that. So what we want to do is kind of strengthen those muscles in order to support the body, increase the power of the diaphragm, increase the power of the abdominals to support the spine, and improve power output through the limbs. There are lots of different exercises that you can do. I'm not saying not to do crunches, not to do leg raises. You can definitely have a place. I definitely still use them as well. But if you're stabilizing your core properly when you're doing things like squats and deadlifts and even some of the push and pull exercises, you will notice that your core strength improves dramatically. And then when it gets to a point where it's no longer increasing from doing those exercises, doing stability exercises, things like planks, hollow holds, dead bugs, all of those things are actually going to enhance your core strength in order to improve your main lifts. Yeah. So let's get into the good stuff now. Fitness magazines. Fitness magazines are out there specifically to target people who aren't fit. So they put beautiful people on the covers, people who have spent decades training their bodies to look the way that they look. And the purpose of these magazines is to get you to buy the magazine to see what's inside so that you can hopefully look like the people on the front. A lot of the taglines are things like get six-pack abs in 6 weeks and get your beach body ready in 30 days and get massive biceps just by doing this 15-minute exercise every day, right? The unfortunate thing about them is that most of the time it's not true. So they'll give you these extremely complex, kind of convoluted workout programs that are highly swayed towards isolated exercises, doing lots of bicep curls, doing lots of crunches, not many squats, not many pushes and pulls, but just kind of hitting isolated exercises for a short period of time, trying to make things extra easy on a time scale, but also then making it complicated from a coordination standpoint, so that by the end of the 15 minutes, you feel like you've done something ridiculous and crazy that's going to get you the results you're looking for. The fitness models, and I actually have a story from a friend of mine who said her partner modeled for one of these magazines, and when he went to buy the magazine after it was released, the workout that was listed there was something that he had never even attempted. So it's not always true. It's not always accurate what they post, and probably better off going to a well-trained fitness professional in a gym, or even an exercise scientist, someone who can identify what your body specifically needs and how to get you the results you're looking for. The exercises are often too complex, and they don't take into consideration all the variables that might come into a workout. So when someone comes to me in a gym, or even contacts me for an online consultation, what I try to determine is whether first of all, whether they're fit for exercise, whether they need to start slowly, where they are in their fitness journey, and also to determine if there are any physical hindrances or postural abnormalities that might be holding them back from doing things properly. Do they have any tightnesses in their legs? Are their shoulders in a rounded position? Do they have a tilted pelvis or rounded back? Are there things that are going to stop them from doing exercises properly that I need to support and help people with in order to get them the results that they need from a health standpoint, before looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint? And the fitness magazines just are basically looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint. So what are the signs of a good workout? All right. A good workout will take exercise timing into consideration. So how long it's taking you to do a rep. There are three phases to any type of exercise. There's the eccentric phase, the concentric phase, and the isometric phase. The eccentric phase is the releasing of the weight. The concentric is the effort phase, or the harder part of the exercise. And then sometimes you can put it in isometric hold. So what that would look like if I was to do a bicep curl, just because it's easiest to show. This is the concentric, so bending of the arm. Then I could do an isometric hold where I keep the arm in that position. And then the eccentric would be the release of that. You can do different timings of those exercises in order to get different results. So when we're looking at hypertrophy, for example, doing a longer eccentric phase, or what we call eccentric training, some people call it doing negatives, is a great way to hypertrophy the muscle. And it does what we call time under tension training. So it allows you to stay under tension for as long as possible, because the body is actually stronger in an eccentric phase than it is in a concentric phase naturally. So if we stay in that eccentric phase for longer, we're loading the muscle for longer, which means that we're, in theory, increasing the size of that muscle quicker. Rest time is another one. If we're doing, the closer we get to what we call our 1 rep max, or the maximum amount of weight that we can lift for one repetition, the longer our body is going to need to rest. So weightlifting or any type of training actually has a high impact on the nervous system, and the heavier the weight is, the more impact the nervous system is going to take. And so if you're not getting enough rest in between sets, your nervous system is actually going to fatigue faster and can cause some issues. One of them being that you won't be able to use maximal muscle contraction, the other being that potentially you could cause nervous system fatigue. Rep ranges are also important. So the higher your weight goes, the lower your reps should be, and kind of vice versa, depending on what your goals are. So when we look at any type of training or creating a new program, one of the things I look at is specificity of training. So is somebody trying to increase their strength? Is someone trying to increase their muscle size? Or are they really just looking at it from an endurance standpoint? Hypertrophy rep ranges are going to sit anywhere between 6 and 12. Endurance rep ranges are going to sit somewhere between 15 up. And then anywhere underneath 6 is going to be a strength specific type of training. It's important not to overcomplicate things. We don't want to make your training too difficult or too complicated, because at the end of the day, just adding in complications doesn't actually make the workout any better. It just makes it more difficult. And we want to make it as straightforward and simple as possible. The simplest way is probably going to be the best way. Using a lot of compound exercises instead of isolation exercises. If you are going to do any isolation things like bicep curls and tricep extensions, do them as pre-fatigue for your compound. So if you, like, for example, if you wanted to go and do some bench press and you wanted to improve your tricep strength in the bench press, do some tricep extensions first and then go in and do the bench press, because then your triceps are already going to be tired and they're going to work extra hard to get the bench press going. Yeah. What do we got, guys? I think we're almost at the end. Abs. I know I talked a little bit about this, but it's important to really dive into this. Abs are our source of power, not necessarily beauty. All right. Yes, having great abs is fantastic. Everyone would love to have great abs, but everyone has a six-pack. You know, it's hidden for most of us, but it is there. And the strength of your core directly relates to your overall body strength. So if you have a very strong core, and I'm not just talking about your six-pack, I'm talking about the entire collection of core muscles. All of your other lifts are going to be very strong, and you're going to be very stable. It's going to create a lot of stability in your body. Crunches, obviously, because it's a constant movement, you're constantly bending at the core, is not necessarily effective as a stabilization exercise. And so using things like planks and dead bugs and hollow holds and even Palloff presses, things like that, where we're working on countering rotation, countering flexion, countering that kind of movement, is going to be more effective for increasing your overall core strength than doing the crunches and the Russian twists and things like that. If you are trying to get a six-pack, nutrition is super important. So not eating sugar or any added sugar, drinking enough water, making sure that you're getting enough vegetables and enough proteins and healthy fats as well is going to be super important. Sticking with the more vegetable-based carbohydrates as opposed to the more starchy carbohydrates as well. I've been basically sticking with a diet of no added sugar for the past 66 days, and I've seen massive improvements in my overall skin health, body health, and physical appearance as well. So, diet definitely has that effect, and that saying of you are what you eat can definitely be applied here. If you're eating good things, you're going to look and feel good as well. All right. So let's really get into the meat of all this. Yeah, the secret that no one talks about. Results take time. You can go into a gym and work out for 2 weeks and start to feel better, but in reality, you probably won't be seeing a lot of changes. If I were to go back and show you the photos from 1 week, from day 1 to day 14, as opposed to day 1 to day 66, the physical changes in my body really aren't that big. It takes about, if you're a beginner and it's your first time in the gym and you haven't done it very often, or maybe you're even going back after a few years and it's been a long time, the first 4 to 6 weeks are going to be an adjustment period for your nervous system. Your nervous system is actually learning how to do the exercises. It's adjusting to that process, and it does take a good amount of time for that adjustment to happen. Once your body starts to become adept at firing off the right muscles, creating the right muscular contraction, you're actually going to get much better at doing that and more efficient at doing that, and the body will start to change. You'll start to see the adaptations happening. Now, just because you're going to the gym every day doesn't mean that you're going to get results either. You could be going every day doing 30 minutes a day of high intensity training, but your body might not be designed for high intensity training. It might be designed for a strength workout. Or vice versa. You could be going to the gym every day doing really heavy lifting, but your body may not be designed for that. It might be designed for a more endurance-based or high-intensity program. So what's very important is to work with someone who can identify what the right personalization is for you, and also how to create a proper goal-setting system so that when you're going into the gym, you're tracking what you're doing, you're learning what's going to work best for your body and how to progress that over time in order to continue to see results, so that you don't plateau, you don't get bored, and that things don't kind of stop for you. You want to continue to see results and changes as you train. So personalization will always win out over generalization. You could go on the web and find, like I said, a million different programs. They're all going to be pretty generalized. It's not until someone sits down with you, talks through what you're looking to achieve, and can actually figure out what's going to work best for you that you'll probably start to see the results you're looking for. If anyone's having any questions, I know I've been talking a lot, but this is a passionate subject for me, so I take it very seriously. All right, well, hey, we've gotten to that point where I've talked about everything that I think I can talk about in the last 50 minutes, and it's free stuff time. Who wants some free stuff? Who wants some free stuff? I don't even know if anyone's watching. I think it might be time to get some free stuff. All right, let's do this, guys. Free stuff it is. I hope you guys are stuck around until the end, because free stuff and big announcement time. Here we go. So thank you guys for coming out again tonight. I hope you guys have enjoyed the Grade 8 webinar. I would love to get all of you a copy of my 33 fat-burning keto recipes, my 55 delicious fat-burning recipes, and hopefully you're all super excited for my free online body transformation challenge, which is going to be starting on September 23rd. So I'm going to open up registrations for that tomorrow. But if you guys are super interested in that, please comment #FreeChallenge. #FreeChallenge. I'll put that in there now. I'm going to be getting as many people onto this as possible. So like I've said many times before, my mission for the end of this year is to get 100 people to remove 10 unhealthy kilos from their body by 2020. So I want to remove 1,000 unhealthy kilos from the planet by 2020. That's my goal. It's going to happen. And I want to see how many people I can help with this free online body transformation challenge. Starting on September 23rd, there's going to be prizes. There's going to be daily challenges. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff. You're going to get meal plans, fitness plans, mindset guidance. We're going to have weekly check-ins. It's going to be awesome, guys. If you're not interested in this, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it's going to be great, and I can't wait to get it started in just a few weeks. It's going to be huge. So be sure to, if you haven't already, comment #FreeChallenge on the webinar. And again, I'll be posting about this tomorrow, getting people registered for this as well. You are going to have to register, otherwise you won't be able to do it. Yeah, if you're not registered, I can't get you in it. So that's the only stipulation. You got to register for it. If you do want the recipes, #33keto or #55delicious, and I will get those sent out to you. They are pretty good. I've enjoyed using them as well. So just let me know if you guys want them. They're great recipe books. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed tonight. It's been fun for me. It's been a great 53 minutes talking with you guys. And one last thing. In 2 weeks, Thursday, September 12th at 8 p.m., I'm going to be diving more into personalization and genetics. So the next webinar is going to be called Your Ideal Body. And I'm going to be diving into the role genetics and the environment play in your search for physical and mental perfection. We're going to talk a lot about Kaizen. We're going to talk a lot about different body types, somatotyping, chronobiology, genotyping, all that stuff. We're going to get into it. It's going to be a lot of fun and very, very informative. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, let me know. Hope you guys enjoy getting the free stuff. And I'll open up a couple of registrations for tomorrow. So the free transformation challenge registration will open up tomorrow, and also registering for the next webinar. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I know I have. It's been an awesome, awesome event for me. And I can't wait to have you guys on here in couple weeks. So let me just see. Thanks for coming, guys, and I'll talk to y'all soon.